Welcome, everybody. It is my pleasure to welcome you to the EIP-AGRI workshop towards carbon neutral agriculture. We are here today and tomorrow, as you know, to look for solutions for this very important challenge that we have at hand. And today, before more things to say, I would like to present to you Maria de Los Angeles Benitez Salas. Maria has been working as Deputy Director General in DG Agri. As you know, DG Agri has 9 directorates, and Maria is responsible for the 3 of them: strategy, simplification, and policy analysis, another one called research and innovation, and the final one, international. So Maria, for me, it's a pleasure to see you again. Please welcome us and open this important workshop we have today.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, very good.
Yeah. Thank you very much for hosting me today. I have already been with you in several locations, and in all of them, I have learned a lot of things, and I have been extremely interested and very happy sharing with you all your knowledge and your experiences. I remember I was in Spain, and then I was in Lisieux, and in other meetings also, always discussing and sharing experience. I was looking to the video that was shown in the waiting room, where Pedro invites Maria to Spain and then a plane. Well, for that also nowadays we will have to find some solutions, because this personal sharing is rather limited. But I'm confident that your innovative ways of working, you will be able to find ways of sharing this knowledge. Still, we are lucky, and I'm very happy that we have the chance to exchange and continue to build the EIP network virtually. Also, I have to say it's a very special day for me today, because I don't know if you know that this will be my last time, my last day or 2 days in DG Agri. Please note that I do not say that will be my last day with you, because I hope that maybe in any event or in any other exchange in the future, maybe even if in another capacity, I will be able to share the day and the moment and the knowledge with you, because we are all multipliers, as your videos and your experience have shown. So I hope that the future will give me still other opportunities. In any case, I will be very glad also to contribute to the multiplication and to make the EIP Agri achievements better known, because you have built together an enormous amount of success stories. Since allow me to remind just a few figures. Since 2014, more than 2,000 projects have been launched. On the research side, around 200 multi-actor projects have also been financed and are feeding the repository of knowledge ready for practice that everybody can apply. And over the past 7 years, the European level networking activities mobilized more than 6,400 experts in 120 different networking events. The multiplying effects of this mechanism. So this workshop is one of the last that is taking place during this 7 years period. But again, to show the diversity and the best way, the open way of sharing. You are more than 100 participants coming from more than 25 countries, mixing foresters, farmers, researchers, academy, advisors, and others. More than 80% of you are engaged in projects, in operational groups, horizon research projects, etc. And we have also now breaking the silos approach, meaning that participant in projects from several funds, so also exchanging experience in that sense, I mean Interreg, regional policy, environmental policy, or other. You are meeting today on a subject that is really important for our field, agriculture. I read somewhere agriculture, victim and perpetrator. It was a title that struck me for the article. But the truth is that our activity, your activity mainly agriculture, is strongly impacted by climate change, and in fact you are all the first interested in mitigating the effects of the climate change and in working for experiences in order to enhance the contribution of agriculture to the fighting against climate change. And it is, of course, one of the priorities, as you know, of the Commission. You know all the Green Deal and the related strategies, many of them pointing directly to the importance of agricultural activities in this in achieving the capacity of the Union in achieving this goal. But I know, and I suppose you do, that the Green Deal and the related strategies have been also presented, I would say, by the Commission is a must. We have to accelerate our activity in that field, and so it has a side of disruption. It's not an incremental agenda. I have listened Vice President Timmermans to say so. So we are approaching this stage that we have to go for it, even if what we are proposing in our strategy may have an impact at the beginning on productivity of profitability. But you have to know that we believe we have the right tools to support farmers and foresters and all the players in this field to go for it and to enhance also your contribution to the fight against climate change and protection of the environment, biodiversity, etc. You know all the goals. First of all, we have the common agricultural policy, of course, that you know. 40% of the future budget will have to be relevant to climate. So we have to incentivize practices that like the one that you are proposing here, that promote climate neutrality in agriculture. You know that the Commission will soon come with a proposal for the 55% of reduction of greenhouse gases, and agriculture has to play in part of that for reaching then later the climate neutrality. So we have, first of all, the CAP, that will be our main instrument, but we have also the carbon farming schemes, for instance, that the Commission has proposed and can also be an important tool to incentivize farmers and foresters to sequester and maintain carbon into soil and biomass. We have also a forthcoming initiative like the EU Forest Strategy that will, in addition, give a frame of policy for this part of activity. We have, of course, research and innovation. That's very important because you're also contributors to this knowledge that these funds are already financing, are going to finance. We had, just for as a reminder, that under Horizon 2020, we devoted more than 230 million to fund transnational research projects for promoting resilience of the agriculture and forestry sector. And we will continue with Horizon 20, with Horizon Europe, Horizon 20 was the first instrument. So we will step up our effort in this area. You know that under Cluster 6, which is devoted to food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and environment, we will devote a significant amount, particularly to your activities. We have, of course, the mission for soil that still has to be further defined and implemented, but will be no doubt a very important frame and concept and instrument also for supporting you in all your innovation. Of course, we have just to remind also under the proposal for the new CAP and strengthening and renovated advice support, which is the AGIS, the knowledge agriculture knowledge and innovation system that we expect that will be an important element for all of you in your activity, because this is totally new. Remember, it was a meeting, some group of farmers coming back, from France or Spain, and they were telling me we do not need any longer the system of advice as it is today. We need something much more modern, something a system with advisor with whom we can talk data, we can talk precise farming, we can talk a lot of new topics and new subjects for modern agriculture. So today and tomorrow, we will have the opportunity to learn from your experience, which are extremely relevant. Why? Because the Green Deal of this strategy show and point out the priorities, but we need boots on the ground. We need the experience of the local circumstances. We need to know how all this is applying in every specific environment and context. So in summary, we need you. We need you. And as you say, we learn, of course, your success stories, what you have learned, what you have contributed, but we learn also from the challenges and the problem that you are encountering. And this is what interests us very much, because with that in our pocket, we can come back to our desk and try to think with you how we can progress and how we can solve these issues and problems. So I think we can today collectively identify some of this, and we have also the participation of Commission colleagues in different fields that I have mentioned that can answer your questions, and for sure that you can possibly ask our questions also to that. And with that, I am just wishing you again all the best in your endeavors today and in the future. And all the best. That's the summary. I have been very happy sharing with you. It has been a pleasure working with you and with my colleagues. And as I say, I can be wherever I will be also a multiplying factor working with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria, for your excellent overview and for making this relevant, the workshop of today. Not only you gave us a very clear overview of the instruments of DG Agri and the European Commission, but also you gave us the relevance from this, going from an incremental perspective to a more transformational and disruptive, really needed, urgent transformation in agriculture to meet these goals and face this challenge of climate change. And your work is really inspiring. So we just saw today that it's really important that you keep connected with us. So thank you very much for this moment.
Thank you.
I would like to say, everybody, that this has been a work of a large team to present and prepare this workshop for today and for tomorrow. And to give the next opening, I would like to present to you our team leader, the team leader of EIP-AGRI, Pacom Elona Yenga. Please, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Andre, and especially a special thanks to Maria, who is spending her last day with us. We are grateful to that, to have kept that day for us. Hopefully, anyway, we may meet in the future in EIP, in some other innovation activities. Now, as you know, after several postponements for the reason that all of you are now aware about, this workshop is finally taking place. Unfortunately, not face-to-face, but online and all the good things that were prepared. At that time, we cannot do them. But we try to reproduce an experience. It will not exactly fulfill the face-to-face expectation, but however, we hope connecting people, tackling challenges, and also sharing knowledge would still be feasible. And that is where we put a lot of emphasis in this one. I would very much like to thank all of you, all the participants, for your motivation, engagement, and also commitment to carbon neutral agriculture. Because after all those postponements, we still have you on board. We thought that we will no more have you, but I see today we are now 96 and about 100 people were registered to this event. So it shows how much carbon neutral agriculture is important to you. So to organize all of this with all the postponements that we had, the team was still very much also motivated. I would like to thank especially Bea, who is the task manager of this workshop, Remco and Kevin, who have been supporting her for the practical organization and all of the workshop, and also Anna, Marta, who took care of the content management of everything. The facilitation is mainly carried out by Andre. Thank you very much to you. Those 5 people spent a lot of time in this. We other colleagues from the service point have been there to support them. Here, a lot of support came from the communication part. Ina Vanoy, who is there also, who took care of arranging the platform with Zeus Gonzalez. If you would have any problem regarding the technical issues on the platform and whatever, please go back to Zeus, our colleagues. You can also get in touch with Sarah and Ina, who are the communication officers for this workshop. And you would see you will have today a lot of breakout sessions. You will also have the opportunity to meet or make some appointment with your friends or try to get out of the room to speak on other things, make some appointment. The platform is there for you. Just make use of all the rooms who are there for the facilitation in the official group sessions. You would have my colleagues, most of you should know them by now, but however, you have them there on the slides. Sergio, Annika, Margarida, Celine, Agnes, Catherine, Lisa, Andre, Iri, Kiko, Ineke, Veronique, as you see, Samantha, everybody is there to serve you. So do not hesitate. If you would have any problem, get in touch with one of my colleagues or myself. We will try to solve your problem. Thank you very much again for your presence and commitment to EIP activities. And we hope you will enjoy your 2 days. Thank you, Andre.
Thank you very much, Pacom. So it's time then for us to start. This has been the great introductions to show us the relevance of what we're doing and who is all the team. It's incredible how much preparation work is put into such an event. And this has been a great work by all the teams. So thank you now, everybody, all of you that are here today. We are now with 96 participants online. So thank you all for being here. It is my role, as Pacom said, to make the bridge and make all these things go smooth and easy. And also relevant. So I'm going to present to you the program very shortly, as very soon we want to go into small blind dates. So meeting us all together in small groups of 6, getting to know each other, because this is going to meet the mood for all the event. This is going to be very interactive. Just like Pacom said, we want to simulate a presential event as much as possible. So as you know, we're starting the day today and we finish at 4:30. We're going to have lunch in the middle at 12:35, 12:40 maximum. And tomorrow, again, we start at 9, so we should be here a little bit before, 8:30, and we end at 1. So today we have a coffee break at around 10:15, if everything goes okay. And right now, after this introduction session, we are starting our journey together. So we are going to learn who we are, getting a bit of the diversity of who we are. So first, we're going to start with these breakout sessions of blind dates, meeting each other. Then we're going to give you an overview of who we are. And then we're going to have a presentation by Susanna Gaona on the policy frame of the European Commission for carbon neutral farming. And some questions and answers. After this, we're going to start looking into solutions. So that's the main objective of the program, as you know. So the first thing today is having an overview as well of the greenhouse gas emissions and sinks. And then we want to go into looking at the solutions that you people that are here today, you know about. So what has been your experiences, your success stories, your challenges, your barriers, and the solutions to overcome those barriers as well, just like Maria Angeles expressed, that is relevant, so that then this can be used in this European Commission instruments to fund, to direct, to support farmers in Europe to implement. So we here today, we are the people that are going to contribute with knowledge to support the European Commission to do its work, and therefore support again the farmers of Europe. So in the afternoon and in the morning, we're going to have breakout rooms where we're going to discuss this. So just now a short overview on the platform. I would like to maybe give you a small overview. You know by now that we are in a platform where Zoom is integrated. And I would like to share you 2 or 3 things. The first one is that this Zoom does not have a chat as normally. So the chat is on the right panel. So if you're on full screen in Zoom, you press escape or you double click and you go out of the full screen and you see the Zoom integrated into this platform. And on the right, you have this chat, and also you can see the participants in the room, and also you can see a small polls that we may be putting at some point. On the left, you have many icons, and you have to be aware that you can only safely click the icons that have a little diagonal arrow to the right. The other ones, they will take you out of the conversation. So if you want to browse them, you should press with your right button of your mouse and open them in a new tab, okay? So you will find a workshop feed, the list of participants. You find this blue window where all the rooms will be. We are now in plenary room, and afterwards we will have different rooms. Don't go to these rooms now, as you will leave this session. And you also have the Padlet map where you can point your location and tell a little bit about yourself with some links. You also have a harbor, which is a place where you can put some informations, ideas, and things that come up, links as well. And you have links to relevant content for today. So this is basically a quick overview. We will be showing you a little bit more. As you know, we have the program here of 24th today and then of tomorrow. So tomorrow we'll be meeting in another day, as you already know, but virtually it's also the same. So this is it for now. And before we start the event, we would like to get into this real concrete dynamic, not just listening to us, but talking with each other. So again, thank you very much for being here. And now we would like to invite you to rooms of 6 people. We're going to randomly bring you to rooms of 6 people for around 6 minutes. And we basically invite you to present yourselves, to say why are you here, what are your expectations for the day. And maybe you can tell a little bit about your projects, your farms, some secret from your farm, some interesting thing. Have a nice 6 minutes, and we'll see each other here after those 6 minutes. Okay? Thank you very much. So Zeus, our help desk coordinator, is now going to break us up into groups of 6. Thank you and see you soon. We had the intention of doing this 2 times, but I think we'll just be doing it once.
Hello.
We lost the connection.
Yes, I lost the connection.
Reading. Oh dear.
Ana Marta Paz. Ana Marta is Portuguese as well, just like me, and she's researching in the Portuguese Institute for Agriculture, and basically she's the coordinating expert of this event, as she's focusing on the theme and researching it as well. So I would like to invite Anna to give us a short overview of the participants that we have in the room today. Anna, are you here?
Yes, good morning. Do you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Okay, thank you. Well, thank you for the introduction. I will then like to show you some of the results regarding the diversity of participants that we gathered at the registration. So we can start by looking at this European map, and we can see that we have people participating from a wide spread of European countries, and all the environmental zones are well represented. And this is really important in order to get inputs from farming systems in very different geographical contexts. So now we can look at the professional background, and I'm really happy to see that we have here today the variety of people that we look for in an EIP-AGRI workshop, where we want to join different actors working in agriculture. So we have here farmers, we have researchers, professionals, organizations, advisors, NGOs, all gathered for discussing here together today. So let's look now at the 4 topics that we propose to you, and which are related to the different farm types. We can see that the mixed systems and the extensive livestock gathered more participants, and fewer first choices on the permanent crops. But still there is some good spread among these topics, and this is going to be really interesting, I believe. So finally, I think we have this picture on the projects in which you are involved. We can see that operational groups is the largest fraction, just followed by Horizon 2020 projects. But there is also a wide spread of financing sources in the projects represented here today, including private, national, and regional financed projects. So I would also like to remind you about the interactive map that was mentioned before. You can find the interactive map on the left sidebar of the event platform. So now we are taking a look at this map, and you can see that many participants have already added their locations and some information. For instance, I myself, I'm attending from the westernmost part of Europe, from Portugal at the moment. If you haven't done so yet, please add your location, your name, and any information that you would like, such as a link, a picture, or a brief description of your business or of your research. Because all this information will be compiled and it will be available to participants in a really friendly format after the workshop. So please use the pink circle in this interactive map to add any information about you that you would like also to stay available to everybody after this meeting. Nice to see so many pins already. So this is it for now. Let's go on finding more about the diversity of participants in this workshop.
Yeah, so thank you very much, Anna. So now I would like to invite you for a small interactive moment in Plenary, me and Anna. So if you are on gallery view, we can see more or less each other's, and I would like to invite you to turn on your camera, as we would need your arms and we need to see you a little bit. Okay, so now that we've met, you've met already in small groups, it's time for us to meet in the big group. So I invite you to take a look in the gallery view, look at the faces of all the people that are present. You will meet many of them during the day. And just for a short, small exercise, I would like to invite you for one small show of hands to ask you the following. If you live in a very big city, let's say more than 500,000 or more than 1 million people, you open your arms like this. If you live in a small city, in a small town, in a village, and if you live in an isolated farmhouse in the middle of nowhere, you do like this. So can you show us your hands? Where is the place where you live? Okay, this is nice to see that some people are really in a farmhouse. A lot of you are in an intermediate place, and some of you are in very big towns. Okay, very nice to see. So now another question. Let's do it a little bit the opposite. Those of you that have farms, or maybe you just have a little backyard garden, and in that case you make a very small thing, or you just have a vase in your balcony. But if you have, let's say, a small farm of 1 hectare, 2 hectares, 3 hectares, you can do a bit like this. If you have a farm, or if you're actually managing, it doesn't have to be yours, you can be managing a farm or having power over advising many farms. Anyway, if your farm is very big, more than 200 hectares, 300 hectares, 1,000 hectares, you can do it like this, okay? So let's see more or less how much territory do you manage? Can you show us the show of hands? Okay, this is a little bit subjective, as we've seen, but we have some people with very big farms and some of you small. Okay, very good. It's a pleasure to see you. Okay, thank you for that. So now, because if we would do this presentially, we could be doing some movements in the floor. It would be really interesting to see the patterns of people. So we would like to now invite you to answer some polls in our platform, as a test for you to use the platform, and we can see it more in a quantitative way, also for the people that cannot see the gallery view, because some of you may be having some difficulties in this. So if you see on the right, on the panel of the right, you will see these vertical bars and 4 questions. So those of you that do not see it, please, you can raise your arm or say something. But if you see it, now is the time for you to answer these questions. So we have 4 questions for you. The first one is, why are you here today? The second one is, do you consider your farm to be carbon neutral? The third one is, how innovative are you in the context of your farming farming type and country? So if you are a very innovative farmer in your country, in your type of farms. And the final one is if you have participated in other EIP-AGRI events. So I'm gonna very quickly share my screen. So for those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, you have it on the right bar here, on the right panel, you see? So this is the place for you to vote. So I don't know if we're having already some votes. This is the time for us to slowly start seeing maybe some results. Maybe Ina can start showing us some results. Okay. So you see results are popping up. Why are you here today? So interesting, very interesting. So by now we have 10% who want to share their experiences and inspire others. So thank you very much, those of you that are doing here for that. So many of you are here to, can you still keep on the first question? Ina is our technical coordinator. So some are here to learn and share, others mostly to learn, almost nobody to lobby until now, nobody, some for networking, and some don't really know. So thank you for that. So let's see the next question. The next question we have, do you consider your farm to be carbon neutral? Totally, it's a priority. So let's hear from somebody whose farm is totally a priority. If you could say, what made you make this a priority for yourself? Can some of you, one of these 5 people that said this, why is this a priority to you? What was the change in your life that made you decide to make carbon neutrality a priority in your farm? Can you open your mic and speak?
This is Juuso from Finland. Hello to all. For me, it's
Hello.
priority because I want to enable farming for next generations as well.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So let's hear from somebody who says, not at all. This is not a priority at all for me. Can somebody of you that says this is not a priority at all, can you explain why this is not a priority for you?
Perhaps I can.
Hi.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Chair is yours.
Well, I don't have a farm, but we have been calculating the greenhouse gas emissions in farms in Belgium, mostly arable farms, and there we see that some that try to be very carbon neutral, but then there is also nitrogen and nitrous oxide, which is much stronger in the emission. Well, it has much more potential in warming the Earth. It is 289 stronger than CO2, and there we see that the balance goes in the wrong way, even though the carbon balance might be okay.
Okay, thank you very much for this. This was super interesting. I think Anna, Marta, Paz can address a little bit this in our presentation, as we're talking about carbon equivalent and not only carbon. But thank you very much for this contribution. Very interesting. So let's see from the next question. We have 51% already voted. How innovative are you in the context of your farming type country? So some of you are very innovative. Others are early adopters of innovations. Some are in average, and final, there we have some resistant to change. Only one person. Thank you very much for being a resistant. So let's hear just from the very innovative now. Can you just very quickly say what do you think is the most innovative thing that you have in your farm right now? One of you. If you would choose one that you think this is the most innovative thing I do, or the last innovation I did, what is it? Doesn't have to be super special. Just share one.
I can speak. I'm not directly the farmer, is my husband, but however we do it together. I'm a researcher. The most innovative part is a project that collected all the wastewater of the wine farm to reuse it for water support into the field. And another one is the collection of organic waste from pruning and vinification to produce compost that we use again in the farm. And we have this innovative machine that produces also biogas from the fermentation of this organic waste. And we did this inside a project of the Ministry of Agriculture in Italy.
Okay, thank you very much. So let's hear from another person that is very innovative and inventive. Let's hear another innovation. This is getting inspiring. Anybody else?
I can tell about our farm. Because we had Corona, we could not sell our vegetables to Mensa of university. So we did a self-cutting field, and we could sell a lot of vegetable, which was really great.
Okay, very good. Thank you. So one more person with an innovative solution.
Yeah, my name is Kurt Sannen. I'm an organic farmer in Belgium. And as an organic farmer, we try to work with a systemic approach to all the processes, which means that we also focus on climate problem and trying to solve CO2. And one of the things we do is working together with nature protection organizations to manage their land with our cattle on the farm. So we close circles, and there is no leakage, much leakage of CO2 or methane.
Okay, thank you so much. This is inspiring to have you all on board. So just to finalize, let's see the last question. We ask you, have you participated in other EIP-AGRI events? So 30% of you have participated in workshops and focus groups, 20% on workshops and seminars, 6% on focus groups, and 42% on first time. So for those of you that are here for the first time, be very welcome. I hope you like it. As you see, this is the kind of dynamic that we want to imprint. We want to have an informal venue where we can creatively feel comfortable to think together, to express our ideas, to share our examples, to learn from others, but also to share the difficulties, because it's only from an honest and creative discussion that we can make this relevant to everybody. Okay, so thank you all very much for being here. Thank you very much, Ina, for sharing this poll. And now, before we go into our workshop sessions, we're going to have two presentations. The first one is going to be done by Susana Gaones-Sayers. Susana is a research program officer at the European Commission in DG Agri, where she's responsible for the portfolio of ecological approaches. So Susana is going to make us a presentation on the policy priorities and initiatives in Europe regarding this context that we're talking about, not only climate neutrality, but other related initiatives. So without more words, thank you very much, Susana. Welcome. Thank you very much for being here. The floor is yours now to make your presentation. And before we start, just one thing, I would like to tell you that please, during your presentation, you can start writing questions on the chat that we have on the platform on the right. So you can write your questions right away, and then after Susana will be answering questions, and you can continue to write them. But please, you can start doing it now as you feel relevant. Okay, thank you very much, Susana. Now the floor is yours.
Good morning to all. It's a pleasure being with you today. I'm going to provide you with a brief overview of some of the main policy instruments and initiatives that are of relevance to the subject of the workshop today. So we are going to briefly touch upon the European Green Deal and its main initiatives, and also then going through some of the tools to support the transition that we have at hand, as the Carbon Farming Initiative, the Common Agricultural Policy, and the Research and Innovation Policy. So if we go first to the European Green Deal, as you all know, the European Commission published it more than 1 year ago, and it sets the path for our collective efforts to make Europe the first climate neutral continent by 2050. Under the Green Deal, there are several strategies that have direct or indirect link with the agriculture and forestry sectors, including ambitious targets, principles, priorities, and actions. And as we will see, climate action is really at the core of those. If we look first at the Farms to Fork strategy, its ambition is to establish a sustainable food system that, among others, has neutral or positive environmental impact of food production. So under the Farm to Fork strategy, there are several initiatives and several targets, but important to mention is that it announces a new EU carbon farming initiative that aims at promoting this new business model and to provide farmers with a new source of income. The strategy is also calling for boosting sustainable practices such as precision agriculture, agroecology, including organic farming, carbon farming, and agroforestry as tools that can help achieve these targets. If we now look at the EU biodiversity strategy, the objective is really to put Europe on the path to ecological recovery by 2030. As you can see on the slide, there are several targets and several ambitions under the biodiversity strategy. But we have, for instance, the objective that at least 25% of agricultural land is under organic farming management, and that the uptake of agroecological practices is significantly increased. I think this is quite relevant for the topic of the workshop. Also, for instance, the ambition of planting 3 billion trees by 2030, and so on. Another important initiative under the Green Deal is the proposal for a climate law. It's aiming to write into law the goal for Europe to become climate neutral by 2050. And among the main aspects that we could highlight here, it sets a new EU target for 2030 of reducing greenhouse gas emission by at least 55% compared to the levels in 1990. Well, if you look at the emissions profile in 2050, you will see that the land sector is going to be very prominent. Agricultural emissions that you can see in green will be lower than today, but because of the almost complete decarbonization of other sectors and also the impossibility for agriculture to reduce emissions to zero, they will constitute still the majority of the remaining emissions. So to be on track for climate neutrality in 2050, it is clear that we need to increase the removals from the farming sector already in this decade. Of course, we can imagine that all these ambitions and all these targets are going to have pose new challenges to farmers, foresters, and rural communities. And at the same time, they will also be key actors in having a central role in addressing these challenges. So for the reasons, it's important to have the right tools at hand to support these actors. But of course, as you know, we are not starting from scratch here, and we already have several of these tools at our disposal. If we first look to the carbon farming initiative, it is announced, as I mentioned earlier, by the Farm to Fork strategy. There is also the Circular Economy Action Plan announcing an EU regulatory framework for carbon removal certification. These initiatives are really important to build the mechanisms to certify and incentivize carbon removals, because these are crucial to achieve climate neutrality by 2050. This is very clear. By carbon farming, we mean a mechanism that rewards climate-friendly practices by individual farmers or forest managers through financial incentives. The slide gives some examples of this type of actions that can be considered as contributing to enhancing the carbon removals in the land sector. If we go briefly to the Commission actions in 2021, recently we completed a 2-year study on carbon farming. The study is going to be the basis of a technical guidance that is about to be published quite soon. In addition, we also have the LIFE program that is financing several projects that are testing carbon farming approaches on the ground. And also there will be some work on improving monitoring tools for land-based removals, and including some of the existing tools that we have at hand. Last but not least, there will be also, of course, importance to take into consideration stakeholder inputs. There are going to be several workshops to discuss different aspects of carbon farming. And I think also this particular workshop today can also provide interesting insights into this discussion. If we now look at the Common Agricultural Policy, approximately 40% of the whole budget for the CAP is going to be climate relevant. There are, as you know, several aspects to take into consideration here. We will have the new green architecture, the enhanced conditionality. Also, the CAP plans, they are expected to play a key role in achieving environmental and climate targets under the CAP. And last but not least, the proposed eco schemes that you may have seen published recently are going to have a special focus on covering climate-related activities, and they need to demonstrate that they contribute to the Green Deal targets. So the carbon farming schemes that we discussed earlier fits quite well with the objectives of the new CAP. If we now go to the another of the important tools that we have at hand, this is the EU approach to agricultural research and innovation. Excuse me. So we have already since 2016 a strategy for agricultural research and innovation in the European Union. And already back then we had already identified the key objectives that we have set for ourselves in the EU Green Deal. So we were already quite advanced by then. What is important to highlight in this slide is, of course, the close interaction between the European Research and Innovation Program, Horizon 2020, and the CAP through the European Innovation Partnership for Agricultural Productivity and Sustainability through different activities you can see on the slide. And what I also wanted to highlight here is the fact that on Horizon 2020, we have approximately 50% of the projects that are climate relevant. Many of these projects are multi-actor, so really ensuring that the end users are really embedded in the activities and that their concerns are taken into consideration genuinely from the beginning. So this is an important aspect, of course, in this context. If we now go to the successor of Horizon 2020, you have on the screen Horizon Europe, the structure of the new research and innovation program. The important cluster or the important pillar for us today, if you want, is pillar 2, and concretely cluster 6 on food, bioeconomy, natural resources, agriculture, and the environment. You can see it highlighted in green. But it's not the only one, because we will also have cluster 5 on climate, energy, and mobility. It's not going to focus on the agricultural sector, but it is also, of course, going to develop and to implement a number of important initiatives and activities aiming at achieving the targets of set by the climate, the Green Deal. So it's also important to take into consideration. In terms of the tools that we have at our disposal to power the transition and to help us achieve these objectives under Horizon Europe, we will have, on one hand, of course, the calls for collaborative projects. These are going to be included in the first work program of Horizon Europe from 2021 to 2022 that we aim at publishing by April-May 2021. And here, if we look at one of the destinations in which we have divided cluster 6 of Horizon Europe, destination is really focusing on land, oceans, and water for climate action. The role for agroecological approaches, organic farming, agroforestry, in achieving climate objectives is going to be quite prominent. But we will also have other instruments at our disposal. We will also have missions, such as the proposed mission Caring for Soils is Caring for Life, that is expected to also have an important contribution in supporting new green business models like carbon sequestration by farmers and foresters. This is still under discussion, of course. And on the side of the partnerships, there are 49 different partnership candidates in the whole Horizon Europe. Under cluster 6, there are 8, and one of them is the one on accelerating farming systems transition, agroecology, living labs, and research infrastructures, whose objective is to accelerate the transition towards sustainable, climate and ecosystem-friendly farming practices by enabling to better grasp short to long-term agroecological processes from farm to landscape levels. This is, of course, another tool that is under development, under discussion with the member states, and we believe that it can also provide a key contribution to our climate and environmental objectives. But we have to put into play, let's say, all the different instruments that we have at our hand for this. So in conclusion, we have seen that the Green Deal is setting the path to climate neutrality by 2050. It means that it's going to pose opportunities, but also challenges for our farming, forestry, and rural areas. It is clear that our farmers, foresters, and rural communities are going to have a crucial role in achieving these targets and are going to be key actors that we need to keep, that need to be really supported in achieving these objectives. We will have several tools at our disposal to support the transition. We will have the Common Agricultural Policy, the Carbon Farming Initiative, all EU policy initiatives, such as the new EU forestry strategy that I didn't cover in my presentation, but we'll also have, of course, an important contribution, but also national policies. We cannot forget about it. And last but not least, I didn't mention, but of course, research and innovation, as you know. The Green Deal is definitely a revolutionary project that requires an innovative vision. This is very clear. So what questions we could use for the discussion? We could discuss what research and innovation do we need to accelerate the progress towards climate neutrality by 2050. It would also be interesting to see how to maximize the impact of research and innovation on the ground, supporting farmers, foresters, and rural communities in this transition. We already have very good examples and successes in this regard, but what else could we do in this regard? So I thank you for your attention, and I wish you very fruitful discussions today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Susanna. It's been a big pleasure to see your presentation. It's a lot of information in a short time, so I'm sure this was a big challenge for you, as there is so many instruments and things happening in the European Commission, as we've seen. So regarding your two questions that you've posed, actually the first one, what knowledge and innovation do we need, is exactly the topic for tomorrow. So that's exactly what we want to discuss. So maybe we could focus a little bit on the second question, but actually to draw this debate and questions and harvest the questions that everybody will start putting now on the chat. I invite Anna again to step onto the floor as our coordinating expert. And everybody, thank you very much for being concentrated in this presentation. Feel free to raise your questions as things were fast, but also to raise concerns, challenges. Anna, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So I'm now reading the questions that participants are starting to pose to Susanna. And we have here a first question from Celine, and she's asking if Susanna could give some examples of missions and partnerships that she mentioned.
Yeah.
So,
okay. Yes.
yeah, I think this is a direct one. Maybe we can take the answer directly. We have already a new one. Please, Susanna. Examples of missions and partnerships.
Thank you, Anna, and also thank you, Celine, for the question. Yeah, I think those were already indicated in the one of the last slides that I tried to show. I hope it was more or less clear for everybody. So yeah, I mean, there are, as I was trying to explain in the presentation, these are missions and partnerships are going to be kind of new instruments under the new program. Well, partnerships are not totally new concept, of course, because under Horizon 2020 we already have partnerships, partnership-like initiatives like ERANETS and JPIs and so on. But in Horizon Europe we will have a new vision of partnerships by which we will aim at setting up and establishing larger scale initiatives, really encompassing a high number of countries, also other stakeholders, private sector foundations. So really larger scale initiatives, and also with increasing impact on the ground. So I was trying to, of course, I couldn't go into much details about the different partnership candidates, because most of them are still candidates. This is something that's maybe it's important to underline, because they are still under development between the Commission and the potential partners, who are member states or associated countries, and also in some cases, depending on the type of partnership, can also be private sector actors. I was trying to highlight in those as examples the two examples that I think are more relevant for the topic of the workshop. For the missions, there is a candidate. Again, this is again a candidate. It's under preparation. It's not yet fully approved, but the idea is really very, very nice, and I think it's. If approved, it's going to be very, very, very relevant for the topic of the workshop. Is the mission area on caring for soils is caring for life. Is going to focus on soil health, and as you know, soil health is a key aspect in terms of ensuring one of the key functions of soils, which is carbon sequestration and keeping carbon sequestered in the soils. So this is one of the examples that I think should be highlighted in terms of missions. There is another mission on climate adaptation that is not necessarily focusing only on agriculture, but it's also going to be relevant in terms of achieving the whole kind of overall objectives that we have under the Green Deal. So it's important to keep it also in the landscape. And for partnerships, we have under Cluster 6, I think I mentioned we have 8 candidates. I think the most relevant one definitely for us is the one on agroecology, living labs and research infrastructures that we are, as I say, we're developing right now. And we are still developing the concept and describing and co-defining together with the potential partners, the potential activities, the objectives, etc. But it's clear that the main objective is really to accelerate the transition of farming systems towards sustainability, and in that tapping on the possibilities that agroecology provides in this regard. And we believe, of course, that actions oriented towards climate neutrality, making agriculture more climate neutral, is going to be very important, because we have to contribute also to those objectives. So those are a couple of examples that I think there are other partnerships that can be also relevant, of course, but I think these are the two more relevant for us today. I hope I answered your question, Celine.
Yes, thanks a lot, Susanna.
You're welcome.
So we have here quite some more questions. I will put up one of them, which is asking how can the different EU policies trickle down to the farm level at the different EU countries? Do you have any clear idea about how this could happen? Difficult question.
Well, I think, yeah, that's the key of the whole thing. Really, we have a lot of knowledge already developed in this area. We are not starting here from scratch. If we look at research, there are, I think Maria Angeles also mentioned, and in my presentation I also mentioned that a big deal of all the projects that we have funded under Horizon 2020 have a strong focus on climate mitigation, adaptation, and see how the farming sector and the forestry sector can contribute there. But I think in terms of drilling down to the farmers and to the foresters, we already have very strong tools. Not going too far with the EIP-AGRI. I think it's been very successful tool in terms of ensuring and translating the research results into practice. So really bringing the results to farmers. The different activities developed under the EIP-AGRI, the operational groups, the focus groups, the networking activities, all these things I believe are already having an impact on the ground. If you want, coming back a little bit back to the earlier question in terms of how to even make these results coming more directly or having more impact on the end users and making sure that they get the information and the knowledge, we are trying to use other instruments that are building, of course, on the principles that we are using now, the multi-actor approach, both in the EIP-AGRI, of course, as you know, and also under Horizon 2020, we have implemented this approach by which we call on the projects really to bring all actors together. So building on those successful approaches already, we are going to try and go perhaps a little bit further, having maybe a stronger focus and look at the local aspects at the local level, because as you know, all these challenges, but in particularly, I think this one that we are going to deal with in this workshop is very context specific. So we need really to have solutions and discussions with the actors at the local level. And this is why we believe that using instruments such as living labs can accelerate this change and really co-creating the solutions to the challenges that farmers face together with them and with other actors. So this is a bit the approach that we are trying to push now, to promote now, and we believe can have a big impact on the ground. And we are looking forward, of course, to hear your views on these aspects during this workshop. I think it's going to be very inspiring in terms of what are really the needs, what needs to be there, what are your needs in terms of advisory services, what do you need in terms of getting to know better the results from research, etc. So this is really important for us in designing these tools and these ideas.
Okay, Susanna, thank you. That was really nice to hear. You gave the example of the living labs that I also believe could be really a very interesting way of doing that the question was related to come to the different contexts of the different EU countries. So we have a lot of questions coming up now. I will maybe try to choose one of the early ones that we had, and I think it's probably something that catch many of the farmers' attention. Then during your presentation, you mentioned the carbon initiative. So Frank was asking, how could carbon farming give farmers extra income besides possible extra yield?
Thank you, Anna. Well, I was expecting questions on this particular tool because it's quite innovative, and it's important because it's aiming at compensating farmers also for the efforts in this area. But what I wanted to say in this, because I didn't mention in my presentation, but this is actually one initiative that is being dealt with by another part of the Commission, so DG Klima. I think colleagues are either connected now or will be connected later on, because this is actually a very important workshop also for them in terms of getting ideas and getting to know better how you are implementing these initiatives on the ground. So I would suggest that we take the question and we let them reply more concretely how they are planning and how do they foresee the design of this tool. Because they are the ones who have the knowledge. If this is agreeable for you, we can do that. We can ensure that you get the reply from them later on.
Okay, thank you for that. Well, I think we can have time to one more question. So we had here one comment from a participant that he was mentioning that there's still some tools that are not mentioned in the strategy. For instance, in the farm to fork strategy, there is not considered the new breeding technology, and he's just trying to make a point that we should really try to put together all the initiatives and strategies, because that's what we need to reach the goal of a lower carbon footprint in the food that we eat. So this was more than a comment than a question. We are having more questions and some comments coming here. I think I could say that we will now enjoy a coffee break, but I would like to remind all participants that we will gather all the questions and we will send them to the speakers. So they will be available to all participants after the workshop. So there will be no questions left unanswered. So please, if you're still thinking of some question, and like the example Susanna gave that could be answered by other colleagues, please you can still put it on the chat and we will then collect them and we'll get the answers. So I think I'm ready for some refreshments. Andre, would you like to add anything before the coffee break?
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you very much, Susanna. It's been a real pleasure, this session. For the next session, after the break, we will have the presentation from Anna on greenhouse gas emissions in sinks. And for that session, we will try, you can actually put likes on the questions, and then that can help us prioritize which questions to put. But do remember that we will ask the speakers to reply to these questions afterwards, and the presentations and videos recordings will be available for everybody. So thank you very much, Susanna, also for following after the workshop to these questions. Thank you very much. For those of you that are experiencing some technical problems, some of you may be using Firefox or others, we suggest you to use Chrome or Edge as the browser to use the platform. And we would also like to remind you that now during the break, you can also use the Harbor on the left, which is actually a link that brings you up to this page called Padlet, where you can put ideas, comments, links, share projects, invite people for consortiums of projects, whatever you think is relevant, but also interesting ideas or questions that you think could be discussed afterwards, just for yourself to remember or others, and you can comment and have it as a space of discussion. So this will be open from now until the end of the workshop tomorrow. So thank you very much for this morning. This is just the beginning. It's going to be a very interesting workshop, and now we go into break, 15 minutes, so please be here 1 minute before 10:30, so 10:29. So we start exactly at 10:30 for a very interesting presentation, then examples from 4 farmers on the 4 topics of permanent sessions, of 4 topics of agriculture. One of them is permanent crops, it was in my mind. And then we go into our breakout sessions. So let's go for the break. Thank you very much. See you very soon. Have a great break. Hello, everyone. Welcome back after your break. I hope you're all coming back on time, as we have a super interesting presentation from Anna very soon. So before we go in, I would like to ask you to turn on your video, just to check if you're really here. I would like to make a very, very, very quick exercise, which is going to be like this. We're going to count to 10 all together, but only one person speaks, nobody speaks at the same time, okay? So the idea is I say 1, another person says 2, but I'm not going to say who is going to say 2 and 3 and 4. So we're going to try to talk this straight. And if we make a mistake, we go back to 0. Okay? So let's try. 1.
2.
Sorry, let's start again. 1.
2.
No, let's start again. 3. Yeah, sorry, let's start again. 1.
2.
3.
4.
5.
No. 11. We have to start again. Sorry. The objective of this is because we're going to go into breakout sessions, and you have to learn how to take a little bit of time and speak in the right moment so that we don't speak all at the same time. So let's try again. 1.
2. 3. 4.
5.
6.
7.
8. 9. 10.
Okay, very good. Well, thank you very much for this. It was a successful test. Now you're all past the test. So after this, we're going to make more complex tests as the day goes. So thank you very much. You can now mute your microphone again to create silence and a good atmosphere for Anna's presentation. So Anna, I've already presented to you. She's a researcher in the Portuguese Institute for Agriculture, and it has been a pleasure to work with her and of course with all the team, but with Anna specifically to prepare this topic. And she has a very interesting presentation that she had to shorten to keep the time, but I'm sure we will have a nice time after her presentation following with your questions and answers. So remember again that you can write questions in the chat as Anna is presenting, and you can also give your likes to the questions that others place. So this way it will be easier for us in the end to prioritize and answer these questions in plenary. So thank you very much for being here again. Anna, the floor is yours for your presentation. You are muted, Anna. You can. Yeah.
So, thank you for the introduction, Andre. I hope you had a nice break. Well, my presentation is gonna be about the emissions and sinks of greenhouse gases on farms. And the goal is to try to define what we talk about when we talk about carbon neutral agriculture and really give an overview of these emissions and sinks in order to take effective steps towards carbon neutral agriculture. So let's start by what is carbon neutral agriculture. So farming systems have the ability to reduce their emissions and to increase removals of greenhouse gases. And we already saw how this is really important when we have ambitious goals that were mentioned this morning, like reaching carbon neutrality in 2050. So as shown in this figure, emissions from farming systems occur in the form of different greenhouse gases, namely methane, nitrous oxide, carbon dioxide. And once in the atmosphere, these contribute differently to the greenhouse gas effect, as was also already pointed out by one participant this morning. So this is truly important. For instance, we know that nitrous oxide and methane have warming potentials, which are many times larger than that of the same amount of CO2. So in order to account for the actual greenhouse gas effect, all the emissions are accounted in terms of their CO2 equivalents. So if we add the emissions and the removals, we get the net emissions. And of course, if these two terms are equal, we can reach a carbon neutral system. And this is in terms of its CO2 equivalents, which refer to the warming potential of the system. So therefore, this balance can also be referred to as climate neutrality. So this is just to clarify that this is what we want to be talking about here today. So to reach this balance is not definitely always an easy job. but that's why we are here today. So we can move to the next question, and that is in the next slide. And here we really also need to be aware of what is included when we talk about carbon neutral agriculture. So when we look at the farm level or at a farm product, we have to account for all the emissions and removals that are related to that farm. And this is what is called the life cycle perspective. And in the farming systems, we can identify these 3 blocks of sources as shown in the figure. So first, on the left, we can see that there are the emissions that arise from all the inputs that are used on the farm. But they were made somewhere else, such as the fertilizers, the feedstuff that is bought, and all the materials and energy. And then we have the emissions that actually occur during the production on the farm. And these are mainly the emissions from enteric fermentation, if there are ruminants, from manure management, if there is any livestock, from soils. And here, this is referring to the emissions that are resulting from nitrogen application to soils. We have also the emissions from the use of energy and fuel, and the emissions and removals from land use and land use changes. And then finally, if the products are processed on the farm, for instance, in the case of a state bottled wine, the emissions from this processing and packaging in the form of materials, machinery, and different forms of energy, they are also included. So, after looking at these main sources and sinks of emissions, we can move to the next slide. And this is showing us how we can start to design a strategy to reach carbon neutrality. And here we can identify 3 main steps towards this goal. Well, we can avoid emissions, we can decrease the emissions, and then we have to increase the removals. So how can we avoid emissions? Well, a farm can have some renewable energy production, can decrease losses, and it can implement circular economy measures, recovering energy, nutrients, and materials. Well, it can also decrease its emissions. And here we are referring to innovation measures aimed at decreasing emissions from enteric fermentation, for better processing of manure, for less nitrogen emissions from soils. But this also means efficiency measures to decrease the use of energy and all inputs on the farm. And then also to reduce the emissions, the carbon emissions from soils, for instance, by applying minimum mobilization practices or cover crops. But still, finally, we have to increase, or we might have to increase the removals. And this can occur through soil and the vegetation. So by a sustained increase in the soil organic matter, or by an increase in the perennial vegetation, for instance, in edges, in less productive areas, but also by introducing it into agricultural areas where they can benefit the ecosystem. This is the so-called agroforestry. So finally, my idea was to show you how this can look like at the farm level. And to do this, I took 2 examples, one from an annual crop farm and another from a dairy farm. And these examples are adapted from case studies from a live project called Agri-Climate Change. And they were actually published by DG Internal Policies, so you can look them up there. And these case studies, they are examples of real farms and of implemented measures. So they can actually be taken up by other EU farms. So this is the first example, and it considers an annual crop farm. It's a farm with about 180 hectares in France, which has a rotation of cereals, protein, and oil crops. So you can see here in this figure, it has the baseline of the emissions from this farm. And we can see that the largest fraction of emission is coming from the nitrogen applied to soils, followed by the emissions from the fertilizers themselves, and emissions from fuel from the operations made on farm. We can also see that the removals is this small fraction that is negative. It's quite slow. It's just about quite low. It's quite about 5% of the emissions. And now we can look at the mitigation measures that were taken up by this farm in order to walk towards carbon neutrality. And these were an optimized fertilization plan, the introduction of nitrogen fixating crops and cover crops. And these two measures contribute to decrease the use of fertilizers and to decrease the emissions from the nitrogen applied to soils. And direct seeding was also implemented over the entire area after a timely process. And this also contributed to reduce the fuel consumption. So overall, the emissions here were decreased by about 45%. But at the same time, the direct seeding and the cover crops contributed to increase the carbon removals by the agricultural soil. And also the farm implemented some measures to increase removals by the vegetation through edges and a small area of agroforestry. So overall, the removals were increased, and we can see here that they offset over 60% of the new level of emissions of this farm. So now we can take a look at an example from a different kind of farm. And this is a dairy farm. This example is from also a conventional farm with about 50 cows located in Germany and with some area for permanent grassland and a small area where silage is produced. So on the right, we can see again the emissions from this farm in the baseline. And the main ones here arise from manure management, you can see, followed by emissions from soils and emissions from fertilizers, and only in fourth place, the enteric fermentation in this case. So here, the mitigation measures that we are gonna analyze is the implementation of a biogas plant. So this plant degrades the manure into methane, which is used for electricity production on farm. And this decreases the emissions from manure and also from the electricity. And then the solid fraction of the digestion is used as fertilizer. And this reduces the emissions from soils and also from fertilizers. So overall, this single measure contributed to a decrease of about 52% in the emissions. And this could be, of course, complemented with measures towards the removals in order to come closer to carbon neutrality. So this was it that I could present to you today in my very short time. I thank you for your attention, and there will be room for questions and answers regarding these concepts and the following presentations after the next speakers. So
thank you, Anna. Thank you very much. Yes, I took the lead. It seemed that it was right after, but we will do it after the 4 presentations. So thank you very much. Please continue.
Yeah, because I was just giving you here a rather general introduction to some of the concepts and questions that we will be discussing here today. But we will have further insights from our 4 speakers. which have own experiences in farming within each of the 4 topics that we were proposing. So I think you can already see their pictures here. So we will have Liliana Fernandez Perez from Spain, and she will talk about her farm as an example for permanent crops. We will have Tonis Ayawat from Estonia, who will present us his annual crops farm. We will have Harry Kacher, who will give insights on intensive livestock in the Netherlands. And then we will have Jacopo Goracci, who will tell us about his mixed farm in Italy. So let's start with our first speaker. And I would like to welcome Liliana Fernandez Perez. She's managing an organic viticulture farm in a rather challenging pedoclimatic area with really poor soils and water limitations, but which also has quite unique features, such as local grape varieties that she will tell us about. But let's hear her experiences and also thoughts about carbon neutral agriculture. I pass the word to Liliana.
So good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Liliana Fernandez, speaking from the northwest of Spain. First of all, I want to say thank you to EIP-AGRI for organizing these kind of things that allow us to see each other and talk about our farms. We are located in the northwest of Spain, in the border with Portugal, just when the Douro became an international river and international border. We are under the main and the biosphere protection and in a protected area called Sarribes del Duero. I'm managing 8 hectares of really old vineyard between 90 and 120 years old, and we are organic certified from the beginning. Our altitude goes in between the 700 meters in the top area that we have granitic sandy soil floors to the 300 meters in the bottom close to the river with slate and really high temperatures. We are into a Mediterranean climate and we have some things like orange trees and vines. We work with autochthonous varieties. In reds, they are called Juan Garcia and Bruñal, and in whites, Puesta Blanca or Puesta Cruz and Doña Blanca. I'm for sure that you have never ever heard about those varieties before, because we are like an area in which we have an important genetic legacy to preserve. Our soils are really poor, and now I'm going to talk about how we work to preserve our area and decrease our footprint, our carbon footprint. What we are doing to achieve our carbon neutrality is there are several specific things that we do. We use less tillage and tractor passing. It's only one, and it's really short, the area that we took away. We keep the cover crops. We don't use for now introduced cover crops, but we keep the cover crops that we naturally have. As you can see in the picture, in the back, the green area, it's all natural cover crops. We don't use any irrigation and no fertilization and 0 pesticides. And one of the activities that we do a lot is cutting through with weed eater, so we don't have to move the earth and we don't have to release the carbon. One thing that we started to do like a couple of years ago, and we have never seen not working in California or Australia, Portugal, or different areas of Spain, is chopping the sods that you can see in the picture here really long. We chop them and incorporate them into the soil. Instead of taking away of the vineyards and burning them, liberating carbon, we put it again into the soil and give a second life like a fertilizer for now on land. And the local grapes are always transforming in our local winery. And only like 20 kilometers apart is the maximum distance that we have to go. So no irrigation, no fertilization, less tractor passing, and less carbon fuel use for every one of our activities are our main apportation to the neutrality of the carbon. The challenges that we are experiencing in this road is that we find few information on practical methods and techniques on how to reduce the emissions. We really want to be improving step by step, but we don't know if it's because we don't find it or because it doesn't exist. We can figure out how much vineyard keep in 1 year with the growth of the stems and the growth of the grapes, and how much is in the skins of the grapes. We don't have that numbers. I'm not saying they don't exist, but maybe there is such information and I can find it. So we probably need to work in knowledge transfer to the farmers and in more events like this and see how everyone is working and which ideas can we build together. And for the future, we're going to plant 2 more hectares in 2022. So they're going to be growing permanent crops that are going to sequester carbon. We are committed to decrease our carbon footprint in the whole process, from the vineyard to the table. So we are doing things like using natural corks, of course, and reduce the amount of glass that we have in our bottles. We use light bottles that they are more green than the heavy bottles. And we really are interested in looking for a certification process that allow us to decrease our emissions and allow us also show our clients our commitment, because it's important to have those kind of certification to differentiate you from the people that I saying they are doing something that sometimes is not even possible to do. You can find wineries that say, we are 0 carbon emissions, and we can understand how that can be possible. And we keep working to preserve our unique varieties and try to stop the disappearing of those minority varieties, because we are a reduced area that they are here and only here, and we think that they are really important to preserve and to continue in the time. And thank you very much for your attention. I'm here for any question you have. Follow us on social media and expect to see you all here in Arribes.
So thank you also, Liliana. It was really nice to hear from your permanent crops farm. And we will now listen to the next speaker, which is Tonis Ayaots from Estonia. And he's managing a really large farm with annual crops. And they have tested and implemented different solutions towards carbon neutral agriculture, which range from more traditional solutions to high technology measures. So let's hear about these experiences and some of their challenges. I pass the word to Tonis.
Hello, my name is Tõnis and I represent Estonian farm called Rannu Seeme. It's a family farm since 1993. Board members Marge, Madis and Meelis Ayaots. And we harvest every year about 2,000 hectares. We are seed producing farm. We grow winter wheat, winter rapeseed, barley, oat, naked oat, pea, beans, buckwheat, chickpea, basilia. We are focused on environmentally friendly production. We strongly believe in science. We practice interaction and are very open to different tests and trials. Every year we have some trials with our partner, Estonian Crop Research Institute. And also we are cooperating with Estonian Agricultural University. What have we done so far with our emissions and how do we capture carbon dioxide? We made a solar plant to use green power in our grain dryer. We grow catch crops every year about 100 hectares or as much as we can. Farm is a part of the Estonian Soil Innovation Cluster, long-term field trial fostering innovation and cooperation. We reduce soil cultivation by direct drilling of winter rapeseed and minimum soil cultivation on winter wheat. We are using GPS outsteering in all tractors and harvest equipment, so we get less overlap. We analyze yield maps to bring more detailed information about the fields. We use own fertilization trials to get more information about fertilizers and how do they react with our plants. We leave all straw on the fields because we haven't got any animals. So all our green and organic matter is coming from our plants. So we also, because we grow our catch crops. Field with low potential are converted to grasslands and woodlands. Our challenges: further increase of soil fertility. It's a key for healthy production. And also we are focused on how to grow clean and healthy seeds without plowing. We are trying to reduce plowing, but we are a seed producing farm, so we haven't got any good ideas so far. How to reduce emissions without increasing costs or decrease in yields or in profits. And for me, it's the main challenge is which are the activities that really reduce emissions to avoid greenwashing. Also, we look ahead and how do we grow more cover crops and catch crops over winter. Over winter, catch crops aren't so popular so far in our fields. Use more satellite imagery to analyze crop health and growth stage, and controlled traffic farming. Every year tractor has the same track to follow, and also we try to direct drill on all other crops also. So that's our short introduction. If you have any questions, so please, you can give me some questions. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Tonis. This was really interesting to hear about. And we will now listen to the third speaker, who is Harry Kaher, and he will present us examples of really innovative research on mitigation measures in intensive livestock farms, which are being done in collaboration with the Dutch farmers. So I pass the word to Harry.
Hello everyone, my name is Harry Kager. I'm from the Netherlands and I'm an expert on livestock and climate. I'm grown up on a dairy farm in the Netherlands, and you can see the background picture here of our farm. It's taken from a water channel. And I have many years of experience as a policy advisor in the Netherlands. And I'm now working together on a big program and research with Wageningen University and Research and many other partners on reducing emission in the livestock sector. It's financed by the Dutch Ministry of Agriculture, and I'm not in an operational group right now, but of course open for new opportunities. And about the program in the Netherlands, well, the ministry has chosen for it. It's a program for the coming 10 years, and the program consists of measuring emissions, also real-time emissions on farms, research on reduction options, pilots on farms. There's also a network of dairy farmers, and there's knowledge sharing between farmers, but also between farmers and researchers, and farmers and policy advisors, and other stakeholders. And the aim of the program is to get new insights and practical solutions for farmers to reduce emissions. And the integral approach is needed for that. And the best solutions are, and also have to be, profitable and sustainable on the long term. Now, reduction options we're doing research on. Some are animal-based, and then we look at the variation between cows. Experts in the Netherlands think it's possible to do breeding on less methane from 2025 onwards. We also look at nurture at a young age, so of the calves. So at a later age, the cow has less methane. We're also looking at optimizing feed. We are looking at optimizing manure, also techniques in the stable, but also techniques in or outside the manure storage. And we're looking at the management of the farmer, all to reduce emissions. And here you can see real-time measurements on 18 Dutch dairy farms. And the red dot is the average emission on a farm. And on the left side, you see the methane emissions per animal per year. And on the right side, the nitrous oxide emissions per animal per year. And you can see that the average emissions differ a lot. And also the emissions are differing over time. We also measured a couple of hundreds of cows. And when you also recalculate the emissions for the milk production, you see that there's a lot of differences between the emission for each cow. But we're doing more than measuring emissions alone. We're also doing pilots, and I like this one. I think it's quite special. Here we circulate the biogas or the methane from outside the manure storage towards a burner or torch. You see it here on the left side. And when you burn the methane, it becomes carbon oxide, which has a less climate impact. And on the right side, it's actually the same, what without the flame, without burning. Here you circulate the methane from the manure storage towards the field, and in the field you let it come out, and microorganisms in the field do the methane oxidation for you. Now, we experienced some challenges during these pilots, and one of these was that there was less methane coming out of the manure storage than expected. So during winter times, it was probably too cold for a lot of emission, but during the summertime, the manure storage was almost empty. So experts didn't expect that. And we also had some challenges for the farmers involved. Burning methane caused the neighborhood to panic a little bit. So we got the telephone calls. And there were also challenges for the farmers when using the soil for methane oxidation. We got some problems with explaining the local governments what we are planning to do. So we had some problems getting a permit for it. Now, the conclusions of the program so far is that there are a lot of differences in the emissions between individual farms and individual cows. These differences give strong leads how to reduce emissions in livestock. And there are also good possibilities to reduce emissions by optimizing feed management and techniques, both for cows, but also for other sectors. And more pilots are needed on farms to test reduction possibilities in real life. Now, we have a website for our program, and all of this in the Netherlands is made possible because of the cooperation with Dutch farmers. So I would like to thank the Dutch farmers very much for that. Thank you very much for your attention.
So I thank you, Harry, for your nice presentation. And we will move on to the next speaker, who is Jacopo Goracci from Italy. And he will present an example of a truly mixed farm in Italy, which has forest areas, arable land, grassland, and different kinds of livestock populations. So I pass the words to Jacopo.
So welcome everybody. I'm Jacopo Goracci from Tuscany, the rural central part of Italy. And I'm here to describe the Tenuta di Paganico farm, the place where I have lived and worked for 16 years now. So over the years, the path taken by my farm has been supported by a network of people and organizations that have allowed us to be what we are now, starting from the strong tradition of almost 100 years of history, but always standing to a constant innovation. So I'm talking about the owner of the Tenuta di Paganico, Mario Novello Zelli, the real driver of all the transformation in this farm that has had and is still having now, but also the Institute of Life Sciences of Sant'Anna School of Advanced Studies and the Department of Agriculture, Food and Environment of the University of Pisa, through projects supported by funds provided by the Tuscan region. So Tenuta di Paganico is located in the heart of Maremma district, and it consists of almost 1,500 hectares. So it's possible to immediately understand the extensive vocation of the farm. So we had 1,100 hectares of forest, 100 hectares of rangeland pastures, created mostly on fire breaks within the woods, managing annual or permanent pasture, and 300 hectares of arable land. So it's a long story farm, but it gradually transformed by breeding of local Maremmana cattle and Cintasenese pigs, from a tethering system and stall-tie type to a real organic free-range breeding. Now animals live and graze in a proper rotation strictly linked to season and climate, in which men integrate food only when ecosystem is not able to provide nutritional value, or in case of nutrient displacement. So all the animal feed is produced and processed within the farm, and we directly sell fresh meat, cured meats, preserved meat, oil, wine, beer, and grappa in our farm butchery shop. So finally, we offer also an overnight accommodation and farm tourism experiences. We started our idea of husbandry from our local talent, as we love to call her, the Maremmana beef breed, that has co-evolved for millennia in this environment, showing amazing resilience and adaptability characteristics superior to other breeds we used to breed in the past, such as Chianina and Limousin. Obviously, the meat of Maremmana cattle provide high nutraceutical and palatability qualities, and for sure, all these peculiarities are not in line with meat industries, as they are strongly linked to a low yield slaughter, but close to the ideas required by the aware and inspired consumer. But here in Maremma exists a clear image in the consumer of the link between Maremmana breed on one hand and extensive breeding on the other. However, that could also be a double-edged sword, because consumer imagine that Maremmana meat comes from animal reared on pasture, while only cows, bull, and veal till 6 months of age are generally pasture-based managed. So after that, the collective imagination seems to forget the successive stages of breeding, like growth, fattening, and finishing, coupling in the mind the meat to the grazing cows. But it's a mistake, because growth and finishing periods are generally managed in a paddock on the clay ground without any nutritional value. That should not obviously be considered as a poor management choice, absolutely. But we are facing a bad lack of coherence between the consumer expectation and the way of managing animals, especially for a local breed. So since 2016, animals have access to wood and pasture all year round for all animal ages, with no exception. And that's for us a very, very impressive challenge. So we can assure that our farm is a result of collaboration of multiple stakeholders with whom we have created a wide project network, being, for example, an active participant of the Innovation Line 16.2 of the Rural Development Plan for a meat integrated supply chain. That give us the courage and the knowledge to start the wood-based breeding project. So we were finally able to get the data of our new management. In addition, we had the possibility to design and build these two prototypes tool, a strip till seeder for grassland management. For example, in grassland, we can use for increasing legumes that are the least resistant and durable herbs in regrowth, and the mobile corral for Maremana beef cattle. So a rotational breeding system also includes the realization of mobile containment structures, able to follow the animal in their rotation. But we are also the head of an EIP-AGRI operational group called Newton, Agroforest Network in Tuscany, aimed at the creation of a regional network of knowledge for agroforestry systems. And we are an experimental farm in an Horizon 2020 project called AgroMix, Agroforestry and Mixed Farming System. But last but not least, we are the project coordinator of another called In Cima il Benessere. In English, it sounds like welfare on top. It was aimed at increasing animal welfare along all production chain through the creation of another prototype, a special truck for the transport of pigs standing and slaying on farm in an unconscious way, hoping to demonstrate that this methodology is more respectful on one end of the quality of life of animal, and on the other guarantee a higher meat quality. Today, this procedure is not legal in Italy. So we had to build a special agreement with local government veterinary services for having a final special temporary license. Obviously, I hope that this may become a common practice for our farm, and it could be represent a kind of trailblazer for other farms too. Finally, regarding the ecological component of sustainability, we had begun to quantify the life cycle assessment of our wood-based beef farming system in line with the EU goal of the low carbon livestock strategy. So our first results showed that the assessment of the global warming potential of organic agro-silvopastoral Maremana beef meat was almost 8 kilograms of carbon dioxide equivalent per kilogram of live body weight. So carbon sequestration by grids woodland allowed to mitigate a large portion, the 64% of the overall greenhouse gas emitted by meat production. That are very interesting and positive results for us, especially if we consider that grassland in terms of greenhouse gas mitigation potential is not still included. So that's all, folks. I really hope that this could be only the beginning of an even closer network among all the different actors like you, interested in the creation and in the validation of the local different breeding models. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody, Anna and the four speakers. I would like maybe to make one or two questions, maybe one question, two questions in one for Anna, as Anna will then be directing the questions for the next four speakers. But just to start, Anna, you've probably seen the chat, there were many questions regarding the emissions of agriculture, namely regarding should we focus just on carbon neutrality or should we go to carbon negativity, meaning that agriculture can increase more its sinks and have a bigger role. And there is the question also related to what is the role of agriculture in the whole carbon neutrality of Europe, for example. And there is, I think, another question that is inside of all of this, which is there is the danger that we focus on focusing on carbon neutrality, we focus on trying to reduce the carbon intensity per kilogram of food produced, for example, and we lose the overview of the carbon objectives and targets. And so we continue with efficiency, we become more efficient, but we continue to increase emissions as a whole. So maybe before you pass on the questions per sector to the other farmers, maybe you could give a little bit of a review on this.
Okay, thank you, Andre. Yeah, this was really interesting to see that we had so many comments about the question of the carbon negativity. So people were reacting directly, why shouldn't we aim at going behind carbon neutrality, right? And this is really nice to see this ambition. And actually, of course, this pops up because we see that agriculture is one of the very few sectors that could do that for our society. So when we have this ambitious goal of reaching carbon neutrality, we know that many sectors of activity can reduce a lot their emissions, but few that deal with the sinks could increase the removals and compensate for these extra emissions. And of course, agriculture is one of them. As I show you in the examples, we still have some work to reach neutrality in many of our farms. But of course, this also depends a lot on the system approach that we take towards agriculture. And also it depends on the way this is accounted. So of course, if the limits of our systems are enlarged, if we start integrating parts of the system that can act as sinks in our farms, we could reach carbon negative agricultural systems. But also, I mean, it's interesting to see that the sector, the land use sector that can have removals presently in the EU, the cropland and the grassland are actually net emitters. So even if at some farms, croplands and grasslands are sequestering carbon, as a whole in Europe, we are not there yet. So we have really to make that path from source to sink in our agricultural lands. But definitely, I thought it was really interesting, and I'm glad to see this ambition for agricultural sector to go behind carbon neutrality. It's great to see that here today. Regarding the other question, I think it's also really interesting, and and this is something that I hope can be discussed during the different meetings today and tomorrow, the concept of how to account for this carbon neutrality. Because of course and this is discussed if we should make this calculation per hectare or for instance per mass of products. And many argue that if we calculate per hectare, then it would be easier to integrate other goals regarding to the larger environment, which maybe can be left out of the focus when we look at a measure which is the carbon balance per production. So definitely this is also really interesting, and it's an open question even among researchers, and that would be really interesting to get the views from people here today. So
thank you very much, Anna. So maybe we give the floor a little bit to our guests, so at least they can have one or two questions. Yeah. So that we focus on the topics of our discussions that we will take right after in our breakout sessions. So I give the floor to you. Thank you very much, Anna. It was very clear.
Thank you. So we have, how much time do we have? About 10 minutes for our speakers for questions?
Maximum, yes, absolutely.
Okay, so I have a lot of questions here. I will choose one for Liliana. Are you here listening to us, Liliana?
Yes, I'm here, yes.
Okay. So I have this really nice question that everybody's thinking about, like, how are your practices compared to the traditional farms in terms of economic return? Do you feel that your business model is penalizing you, or do you feel that it's maybe even more remunerative than other more traditional models in your area?
Okay, I think that there's two ways to see this. First, how is traditionally doing here, The vineyard here, there are small vineyards only used for wines for the houses. So it's not like a business development behind my area. That's why we have the straight varieties and we are losing them. It's not Tempranillo that in Spain. From that, people got old and started to use pesticides, and because it was too hard to go and work in the land for them. So we are better compared on how they are treating the area and better in the economic area. But compared with other areas of Spain, you see we have more or less 4,000 kilos per hectare of grapes, really good quality. But close here in Ribera del Duero or in Rueda, other areas, they have that 12,000 kilos per hectare, you know. So it has to be used to different products because we are not possible to compete with prices, but the quality of the grapes and the quality of the wine is different. And I think this is quite a bit good question because it's different from other agricultural products. Because on wine, if you have high quality, the price is different if you have bulk wine. And that allows us to be an economic, consistent and an economic, well-balanced company. That's why, because we are on wine sector.
Okay, that was really clear. Thank you for that. So I think there is more questions from Liliana. I think we will gather them for her afterwards, but I will, thank you, Liliana. I will pose one question to Tonis. There was several questions for you. There was one about the organic matter in your soil. Have you been monitoring? Do you see any effect of the measures you've taken? And then some other question, just to put a bit two in one, about the catch and cover crops you mentioned. Did you find any difficulties in implementing these measures? Because there's some idea that it's not always easy to implement in the winter conditions in the north of Europe.
Yeah, we take soil samples about over 5 years, but cover crops we are using about maybe 6 years. It's too few time to look at these changes in soil, I think, because it's a very slow, how to say, yeah, and we try to, we know it is very good for soil, and every university has shown trials, and it's working, I think, and universities also have mentioned it. What about these cover crops in springtime? The problems are about overwintering cover crops, because there aren't any good crops to keep over winter, and sometimes in the autumn time it's very dry, so you can't get the good starting point for biomass, and yeah, that's shortly about, I think.
Well, thank you for that, Tonis. That's really different conditions from the Southern Europe, for instance.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
Harry, well, we have here different questions to you. One of them is, apart from the methane monitoring that you show us, is there any monitoring of the nitrous oxide similar to the one that you showed to us, or some measures that you have tested? Yeah, that's mainly it for now.
Okay, thank you, Anna. Well, we are also measuring nitrous oxide. and we are looking at when it is really necessary, or when we think it's necessary to do so. So for example, in some stables, we are also measuring nitrous oxide. For example, in the Netherlands, goats are in stables walking on a straw-based floor. And then we also measure nitrous oxide. And when doing the pilot on methane oxidation, and I guess that's where the question was about, then we are also measuring other stuff which might be important. And we are looking at, well, is the burning complete of the methane, or is it incomplete, and stuff like that. So yeah, we are looking, we are looking for nitrous oxide as well. We are measuring it.
Okay, then we have another question here, which was actually also, I think, posed to me, related to the behavior of methane in the atmosphere and its actual global warming potential. So a participant, Kurt, he's asking if it's a really good idea to burn the methane, and his point is that methane has a lower time in the atmosphere than CO2, so in the end that its warming potential would not be that large. I mean, I can maybe, I don't know if you want to answer to that, but I can say what I think about this. Well, it's true that methane has a smaller lifetime in the atmosphere than CO2, but actually the global warming potential that is used considers that, so is corrected for that. And of course, these numbers we know are always being corrected. And even the concept of the global warming potential is always being researched, and new proposals come up all the time. And we will have a new report from the IPCC this year, but still, it is considered to have a higher global warming potential than CO2, and that is why it's actually advisable when we have an emission of methane to burn that gas. And if we release CO2 instead, we will have an effect of climate, which is much smaller than if we would just release the methane into the atmosphere. I don't know if you want to add anything to this.
Well, I think you're right. So methane will become carbon oxide after a couple of years anyway. And what we are doing in the pilot is that we do it straight away, actually, the process. And then, of course, the global warming potential of carbon oxide is about 25 times lower than methane. And well, in the first years there is methane. Of course, it has a very big global warming potential, but that's kind of a technical discussion. So yeah, we know that, and I think it's important to say, and then I will stop, Anna, that the cows, they also eat the grass, and of course the grass, they are also like capturing the carbon oxide, and when the cow is eating the grass again, there comes methane free out of its manure, and you get it back to carbon oxide. Then actually it's a carbon neutral process. So it might look bad when you're like having carbon oxide, but it's not so bad as you think.
Yeah, I see what you mean. And I mean, just to finish the technical discussion about the warming potentials, which is not for here, just to say that, of course, we have to base our measures and the policies always on the latest available science. So, and this is being very much reformulated all the time. But of course, this has to be our basis. So we have many questions for Jacopo also. Let's see if I can pick up one. Let's see. we have a comment. Someone says that the Italian example is quite similar to the Spanish beef system, the extensive. So that's really interesting. Someone is asking woodland management and potential to bind carbon. What about the use of timber and related emissions? And
La presentación que acabo de contestar a una pregunta en directo.
And then there's a question from someone in Denmark that says, here the dairy sector is claiming that the beef from their cows and the cows after retirement is much lower than the meat from grass feed beef due to higher efficiency and the milk from the cows. And he's wondering who is right and if you have any idea about it. So is the question, I guess, about the removals of CO2 in the timber, and if you have any idea about this comparison with the dairy sector?
Yeah, thank you for a question. So because one of the questions is properly one of the challenges of our farm, because we are going to change our type of heating, for example, of all the farm. Using our timber, because now we use gas, so we are trying to valorize also this part of our ecosystem. So it's very, very important. And I don't know what are the differences between milk sector and beef sector, but for example, one of the ideas that university that makes this analyze with us underline that one opportunity is that decreasing almost the 5% of the wood timber extract from our woodland. The ecosystem will mitigate the enteric fermentation of a herd double size of the current one. So it also our management can affect in a more intensive way the mitigation of the normal enteric fermentation of the animals. Regarding the grass, university decide not to include the management of temporary grassland, because they decide that the carbon sequestration of temporary grassland is still uncertain on the size of distribution. So they actually remove, but is one of the challenge, because we are working on that topic. So we are including like phosphorus flows, like ammonia emissions, like other stuff, in order to make a more complete analysis on our model of management ecosystem through a more sustainable beef production.
Okay, Jacopo, thank you very much. I hope we will be able to explore some of the measures you talked about later in our meetings. I think I will now pass to André, that will present the following moments of this workshop. Thank you very much to all the speakers. It was really nice to hear your presentations.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. It was really nice. And I want to remember that you can also continue to share during the breakout sessions. So the idea for inviting you is that you are actually bringing some insights, some concrete examples to the topics that we are going to be discussing. So we do want you now to focus on that, on the next 4 thematic sessions. So maybe Ina can now show up the PowerPoint that we have to present the process of what's going to happen. I had a small energizer, but I think we are going straight into the what's next, so that we keep lunch more or less at the predicted time, which was 12:30. I think now is going to be 12:35, 12:40. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. We have passed from getting to know each other. We have had a presentation on the policy frameworks for European Union. We've had presentations on greenhouse gas emissions and sinks. We've had concrete examples from 4 types of farming. And now we are inviting you to the main session of today, which is a session which you are actually sharing, providing your knowledge together, and then we will harvest it in the afternoon. So what we propose for now is 1 hour and 10 minutes session in which we ask you, which are your experiences and knowledge on carbon neutral agriculture? So you're going to meet inside 4 thematic sessions, but inside this question, what we would like you to discuss is basically what are the good practices, what are the success stories, what has made their success, but also what are the challenges and barriers and the possible solutions. Remember that the idea is not that we have a lot of technical discussion on how do we quantify methane or carbon. It's actually pointing out the way forward. How can Europe promote carbon neutrality in farming? They need insights and examples and a check on reality. If is it working, if it's easy, what are the solutions that are easy, what are the solutions that are supposedly easy, but then you cannot implement them, and then how can you implement them after all? So you see, this is what you know about, and some of you know a lot about it because you are pioneers. Some of you know a lot about it because you haven't been able to be pioneers and you haven't been able to implement the solutions. So all of this is relevant. So in the next slide, what I have to show you is the platform. So in the platform, first of all, there is this on the left, this emissions and sinks link that you can still click to at any time now during the breakout session or afterwards during lunch or even tomorrow to see this overview that Anna Marta made on the emissions and sinks. Okay, so this is how it's going to be for content if you want to check back. Then regarding the rooms, as you've seen on the left, we are now on the plenary room, and below you see 4 different rooms. So these 4 different rooms are there, but you can only go to one. So which room are you going to? Probably you already know to which room you're going to, but if you don't, just above this emissions and sinks button on the left, there's one that says breakout list, and there you have the list of all the people and all the breakout sessions. So you should choose. You can choose. You cannot choose. You can see where you have been pre-assigned to based on the interest that you've communicated upon the registering. Okay, so there is also, it's interesting to see that inside each of these breakouts, your names are also there and you can see them. Okay, maybe we can see the next slide. So the next slide shows us the process of what's going to happen. So 1 hour and 10, it's going to be like this. When I finish talking and I invite you to go, you are going to go into one of those 4 breakout sessions, which is permanent crops, annual crops, intensive livestock, or mixed systems and extensive livestock. Okay, so you go to the one that you are pre-assigned to, you click in and you go and open the Zoom there. So you have 2 options. You can enter just like we did now in the platform, or you can open the Zoom app if you have been having technical difficulties. And when you go into this room, there's going to be a facilitator who is going to lead you into breakout groups, okay? Because some meetings, some breakout rooms have 20 people, others have 40, depending on the interests and how people pre-assigned. And then you're going to go in groups of around 10 people. So in these groups of around 10 people, you'll have 1 hour approximately to discuss what I was mentioning. So what is your knowledge on carbon neutral farming in this type of farming, in this type of agriculture, and success stories, challenges, and solutions. And then after this 1 hour, you come back to the breakout room just for a closing, and we go to lunch, okay? During lunch, there's other sessions that you can, not sessions, there are empty rooms that you will see also in the left panel that you can join. If you want to invite somebody to meet during lunch, you can invite them to go there. And After lunch at 2:40 again, or 1 or 2 minutes before, we join here to plenary, okay? Then I'm going to give you a very interesting exercise again together, and we're going to review the program of the day, but we're going into a breakout session again. And in this breakout session, each of this group of 10 people that met is going to present in this breakout room of 40 minutes. You're going to present and learn from all the groups that were discussing the same topic, okay? And we are going to work a little bit together on this. And then we present it into plenary, okay? So next slide is, again, the rooms. I already showed you this. And I think we don't have another slide. Do we have another slide? I think Ina is now letting me showing a little bit how the room goes, but we have, it's time to go. So I hope everything is clear right now. So as soon as we close this, we go into the breakout room. So you go to annual crops or intensive livestock or mixed systems or permanent crop. Please go to the room you're pre-assigned, and you'll have there 1 hour and 10 minutes to have relevant conversations and a great time with your peers. I hope this is it. It's super clear. Otherwise, please contact the help desk. Okay? So that's it. See you soon. It's time to go. I think we don't have a next slide, so we can just straight go to the missions, to the breakout rooms.